بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Sharh al-Manzumah, commentary on Manzumah by Ayatummah Mutahhari. You remember we said there are 17 issues that we need to talk under the title of Wujud and Adam, existence and non-existence. And our order is somehow different from the book. So Ayatummah Mutahhari organizes this in a different way. There are some slight changes, and it's actually similar to what we had in بداهت al-Hikam. The first topic is بداهت الوجود, and the second is الاشتراك المعنوي للوجود. The third is زيادة الوجود على الماهيت. The fourth is أصالة الوجود, and it continues. Hakim Sabzewari rahmatullah alayh brings asalatul wujud after the discussion about bedahatul wujud, but we will discuss it in the order that I mentioned. So first we want to see that existence is self-evident. It doesn't need definition, and indeed it's impossible to have any definition for it. And then inshallah about al-Ishtirak al-Ma'nawi lil-Wujud, mafhum wujud is equivocal. These are two things that we will discuss inshallah today. What Hakim Sabzewari says in his poem is starting with this. He says معرف الوجود شرح الاسم وليس بالحد ولا بالرسم. He says what introduces معرف, you are familiar, we said in al-Mantiq that the subject matter of mantiq is actually two: al-Mu'arrif wal-Hujjah. Mu'arrif is something that helps us. Mu'arrif is something that helps us in understanding tasawwurat nazari. If there is a conception that we don't understand by ourselves, we need mu'arrif, ta'rif, definition, which is either had or rasm. Hujjah is for tasdiqat nazari, for those propositions and affirmations which need reasoning. So mantiq, we said, has two subject matters: al-Mu'arrif wal-Hujjah. Mu'arrif for tasawwurat, Hujjah for tasdiqat. So now Hakim Sabzewari says معرف الوجود شرح الاسم وليس بالحد ولا بالرسم. Whatever is mentioned as a definition for wujud indeed is not technically considered to be definition. For example, some people have said Wujud means thabitul ayn, other things, what is there, what exists, what has reality. Whatever they say, it's sharhul ism, means it's just a description of this term. Like what we do in dictionary, for example, sometimes, we want to know what does it mean to say in this language. For example, those who don't know English. For example, what is, I don't know, a street? What is road, for example? They look at dictionary and they find some description. Sometimes we do for the same language. For example, we have dictionaries of the same language, and in the same language they explain it. Like, lots of dictionaries that learners and people who have some background of language, they want to know more. In English we have, in Arabic we have, in all our languages, sometimes we have dictionaries in the same language. They describe the entries in the same language, sometimes another language. Anyway, these are normally sharhul ism. It's just an explanation of these terms, not had and rasm. Because in logic we said ta'rif or mu'arrif, if it is technical ta'rif, is either had or rasm, and each of them is tam or naqis. You remember this, that had the tam is to have jins qarib wa fasl qarib. So for example, al-insan haywanun natiq. This is had the tam. If we say al-insan jismun natiq or jismun namin natiq, again it's only applicable to human beings because natiq restricts it to human beings. But you didn't bring all the zatiyat. You have brought jins ba'id and fasl qarib. This is hadd al-naqis. Hadd al-naqis and hadd al-tam are both dependent on bringing zatiyat, jins and fasl, so that you can know if it is like insan. Opposite to this is rasm. Rasm tam and rasm naqis is where we may bring, instead of fasl, arazi am or arazi khas. For example, if instead of natiq we say dhahik, dhahik is arazi, but it's still exclusive to human beings. If instead of dhahik you say mashi, it's not exclusive. In any case, these are different types of definition in mantiq. But the question is, for existence, for being, for wujud in Arabic, hasti in Farsi, can we bring any definition, whether it's had or rasm? Hakim Sabzewari, like many other philosophers or all other Muslim philosophers, they say no. Maybe some mutakallimin have tried, to define, but they say no. Why? Because it is badihi. It's self-evident. And since it is self-evident, it doesn't need ta'rif. He himself says, مفهومه من أعرف الأشياء. The concept of being or existence is one of those things that we know the best. They are very familiar to us, and actually it's very hard to understand anything unless we know wujud and hasti. Even a child understands. Inshallah, we'll explain. وكنهه في غاية الخفاء. Yes, what is the core, what is the reality of existence, it's very much hidden, but the concept is easy. So let's see what Ayatullah Mutahhari rahmatullah alayh says here. He says the first discussion about existence is about wujud being badihi, which means concept of wujud. One of the things that you should always distinguish in our philosophical studies is concept of wujud versus reality of wujud. Mafhumul wujud versus haqiqatul wujud. Mafhum is in our mind. Haqiqatul wujud is a reality. Sometimes it can be in us, but even if it is in us, its reality must be in us, not its image or its mafhum. In the same way that we have concept of fire and reality of fire, concept of water and reality of water, we have mafhumul wujud and haqiqatul wujud. So the question about بداهت is for mafhumul wujud. So before we go into any other issue, first we have to discuss this to have a good understanding of concept of being. This is the basis for our future discussions. So he says mafhum wujud or concept of existence is badihi, it's self-evident. And what we need in badihiyat, in those concepts which are self-evident, is at most a kind of reminder, a kind of description. Otherwise people will understand it by themselves. Ayatullah Mutahhari says, of course in the same line as Hakim Sabzewari, that whoever looks at his own or her own mind, they would find that there is a clear image of wujud or hasti or existence. When we say something exists or something doesn't exist, we understand what does it mean. You don't need to explain to people what does exist or doesn't exist mean. Even a child understands. For example, when his toy is here or it's not here, he understands the difference between existing here and not existing here. Some mutakallimin, some theologians have tried to say wujud, for example, means sabitul ain or sabitul dhat, something that its essence exists, or its essence has a reality. But you see, indeed they are using the concept of existence in definition of existence. Because what is thubut without existence? If you remove existence from thubut, doesn't remain. So they are just in a different way refer to the same thing. What we maximum need is to familiarize ourselves with the terms which are used in different languages about wujud. Otherwise, if we know what does this mean, we understand. Then Ayatullah Mutahhari says that it is not had or rasm. Had, as I said, means that you bring all the zatiyat, all the essential concepts in the form of jins and fasl and it's hadd tam. If you bring some of it, it is hadd naqis. If you, instead of some zatiyat, you use araziyat, those things which are not inside mahiyya, then it becomes rasb. Here we don't have any of these. Why? Because zatiyat are from mahiyya. Although Ayatummah Mutahhari here has a disagreement with Hakim Sabzewari, but maybe we don't need to go into details. And just mention what Hakim Sabzewari said, that zatiyat are part of mahiyya. Jins, fasl, no are part of mahiyya. Araziyat are also araziyat for mahiyya, but wujud is different from mahiyya. Or you can say wujud is basit, is simple. Inshallah we will explain later. Al-wujudu la thaniya lahu wa la juz'a lahu. Wujud has no second and has no parts. You cannot divide wujud. Wujud is simple. Is not compound. Therefore, you cannot bring jins and fasl, because jins and fasl means that you are able to bring different parts for so if you bring jins or fasl, it means that you are analyzing and dividing mahiyya into what is common and what is not common, what is used as jins or fasl, differentia fasl. In rasm also the same. Wujud is basit, has no parts. So it's not needed to have definition for wujud, and it's not even possible to have definition of wujud. Plus anything else is less known to us than wujud, because anything depends on understanding the concept of wujud. So if there is anything used, it is Sharhul Ism. In the footnote, Ayatummah Mutahhari says something that maybe in future would benefit you. He says, remember that Sharhul Ism can be used in another sense also in philosophy. One way is what we already discussed, what Hakim Sabzewari said, that anything brought as description and explanation is just Sharhul Ism. But there is another usage. When we talk about a mahiyya and we don't know whether it exists or not, or we know that it doesn't exist, that is also called Sharhul Ism. Means something that its reality is not established. It's just for us a mafhum, it's a concept. So that's another usage. Here we mean just description with using different words. So مفهومه من أعرف الأشياء وكنهه في غاية الخفاء. But reality of existence is very much hidden from us. حقيقة الوجود. Can you explain even existence of an insect? Can you explain existence of even a plant? It's very difficult for us, let alone existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is wajibul wujud. In the footnote, Ayatummah Mutahhari reminds us of something that we had last week, that when we say khifa, it is hidden, means hidden from us, not from itself. Because we said we have wujud fi nafse and we have wujud لغيره. In similar way, we have ظهور fi nafse and ظهور لغيره. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or haqiqatul wujud, they are not zahir for us. They are hidden from us. Otherwise, in themselves, they are clearer than anything else. Okay, this is not very difficult thing, so we can move on now to the next discussion. The next discussion is about اشتراك الوجود. But what type of اشتراك? الاشتراك المعنوي. As a reminder, we studied this in literature and also in logic, that we have مشترك معنوي and we have مشترك لفظي. Sometimes we have a term, a lafz, for example, which is designated for several meanings. Each designation has been independent, separate. Once, for example, ayn in Arabic, once it was designated for eye. Another time, ayn was designated for a spring of water. Another time, for example, for spy, jasus. So ayn, they say maybe it has about 70 meanings. But for each meaning, it was designated separately. So there are many different, what we call وضع. وضع اللفظ للمعنى means appointing this term to this meaning. Each, of course, has its own instances. For example, if we say it means eye, it can be my eye, your eye, anyone's eyes. If we say a spring, it can be this spring of water, another spring of water. So that's its instances, it's afrad, it's ahad, but the meanings are different. This is called al-mushtarakul lafzi. In Farsi, very famous example is shir. Shir is mushtarak lafzi, because shir can mean lion, shir can mean milk, shir can also be used for other meanings. Badiya, for example, that Mawlavi in Masnavi says, one yaki shir ast andar badiye, there is milk in badiye, means in a bowl. One yaki shir ast andar badiye means lion in the desert, in the plain, because badiye also has two meanings. So this is mushtarak lafzi. Mushtarak ma'navi means one meaning but general, may have different instances, but there's one designation. Marratan wahida, once it's designated for a meaning which can be general. For example, they said insan means this, human beings. When in Arabic the term insan was coined, either وضع تعیینی or تعیونی. We don't want to go to details. This is what we discuss in usul al-fiqh as well. When it is designated for this meaning, it's once, but it has different instances. This is called equivocal. مشترک لفظی is, used in different times. Even sometimes, you must remember, there's a good point that some people say. They say sometimes also maybe different Arab tribes. In English also maybe different, cities or different, communities. Sometimes they were using this term for this meaning, but then later when they collected them, so we have all of them. But maybe it's not that all of them used these terms in all these meanings. This is also a good point. In any case, this is a reality that we find it in all languages, that they have, for any reason, terms which can be used in different senses. And then again, in each sense, they can be general. They can be what we call kulli, universal, opposite to juz'i, which is particular. But mushtarak ma'nawi is just, we are dealing with one meaning, several individuals. Even mushtarak lafzi, for each meaning, that meaning can be mushtarak ma'nawi. But we don't want to complicate things. Our question is this: is the concept of wujud, please remember, as soon as you say is wujud mushtarak ma'nawi or lafzi, you have to know that we are talking about concept of wujud, because we are not talking about reality. Reality of wujud is not coming into these classifications. We are talking about mafhumul wujud. Mafhumul wujud is used as a mushtarak lafzi or mushtarak ma'nawi. Why this discussion is so critical, so important? Because this is the basis of many points in future. And if we don't establish this here, or if we don't get it right, we have problems in future. Even asalatul wujud depends on this. Tashkikul wujud depends on this. This is one of the foundations of our discussion. Some people, because they have seen differences in the external realities, external beings, they missed the point that mafhumul wujud is mushtarak ma'nawi. They said, how can wujud be mushtarak ma'nawi? How can wujud be used in one meaning, one sense, when we have so many types of wujud? For example, mahiyat. We have insan, faras, baqar, shajar, hajar, human beings, horses, elephants, water, flowers, insects. We have also angels, we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say, how can we say they are all the same? So there must be different meanings when we say Allah mawjudun, and we say al-insanu mawjudun, and al-malaku mawjudun, al-shajaru mawjudun. They say mawjud must mean different things. But the fact is that, yes, these are different beings, but mafhumul wujud is the same. When we say Allah mawjudun or al-insanu mawjudun, mawjud means the same. Or in English, if you say God exists, or human being exists, or this elephant exists, this pigeon exists, the meaning of exist is the same. Yes, the reality is different. Even two human beings are not exactly the same, let alone different mahiyat, different types of being. But mafhum al-wujud is the same. Like water, when we say water, or we say ma in Arabic, in English, in Farsi we say ab. Mafhum al-ma, mafhum of water is the same. But we can have cold water, we can have boiling water, we can have warm water, we can have salty water, sweet water, we can have different types of water. But the meaning of water is the same. So, mafhum al-wujud is mushtarak ma'nawi, or it is equivocal, not univocal. This is about mafhum al-wujud. Some people in Bidayah, you remember we had this discussion, and in Nihayat al-Hikmah also this discussion is there. Some people say, no, every mahiyya has one meaning for wujud, plus wajibul wujud, so becomes many types, almost infinite meanings for wujud, because we don't know how many mahiyat are there and how many mahiyat can be conceived. So for every mahiyya and for Allah wajud, which has no mahiyya, there is one meaning for mawjud. Some people have said no, for wajibul wujud there is one meaning for wujud. For mumkinul wujud is also one meaning. All mumkinat, just one meaning. So there are two meanings. Because they said we cannot accept that mawjud for God is used the same sense as mumkinat. Allahu mawjudun and al-insanu or al-farasu mawjudun. They say wujud of God is independent, wujud of human beings or other mahiyat are not independent, so cannot be used in the same sense. So they have tried to reduce it. So some say equal to the number of anwa, mahiyat, plus wajibul wujud, we have meanings. Some say just two meanings. Wajibul wujud, when is subject and we say Allah mawjudun, this mawjud has one meaning. And when we say any mumkin is mawjud, it has another meaning, the two meanings. We say no, whether it is for Allah or mumkinat, mawjud is used in the same sense. Hakim Sabzewari, rahmatullah alayh, argues, brings argument. One argument is this, that you have it also in Bidayah. يُعْتَ اشْتِرَاكَهُ صُلُوحُ الْمَقْسَمِ. Although in some texts, Arab, they have put dhamma, اشتراكه, but it seems to be اشتراكه. يُعْتَ اشْتِرَاكَهُ صُلُوحُ الْمَقْسَمِ كَذَلِكَ اتِّحَادُ مَعْنَى الْعَدَمِ. Actually, there are two arguments in one couplet. One argument is this: wujud can be maqsam. You remember this in mantiq and in usul, many times we have used this. For example, when we had la bishart maqsami. Maqsam is what is divided into different types. Types are aqsam, qism. Maqsam is divided into different types. When we can put wujud as maqsam and divide it into different types, we can say al-wujudu اما واجب او ممکن. الوجود اما ذهنی او خارجی. الوجود اما واحد او كثير. الوجود اما بالقوة او بالفعل. When you can use وجود as مقسم, it means that وجود has a common meaning that is available in this part and that part, this type and that type. For example, we say al-Haywanu is either able to speak or not, ناطق or غير ناطق, for example. Or for example, say Muslims are either, for example, Arabs or Turks or Kurds or Iranians or Pakistanis or Indians. These are all Muslims. So Muslim is available in all of them, can be applied to all of them. So when you can divide wujud or concept of wujud into different types, it means that this concept is available. So it means it's mushtarak ma'nawi. So this is one argument. The second argument is that كذلك اتحاد معنى العدم. Adam is opposite to wujud. Non-existence is opposite to existence. No one has doubt about this. If someone doubts this, of course this argument doesn't work, because these arguments are to awaken our understanding which is there. We unconsciously use wujud. We are all familiar with wujud. Just we want to make that conscious. So what we know as irtikaz, what is deeply built in us, we want to use it. And if you remember in Usul al-Fiqh, we had this discussion, for example, how we can understand al-ma'na al-zahiri. We had, tabadur, for example, salbul, sihhatul ham wa adamu salbul ham, ittirad. We said all of them work for the people who have familiarity with the language and the usage of this term in language. So they refer to themselves and check what is in their, maybe unconscious understanding to make it conscious. So here, everyone knows that Adam has one meaning. No one has said Adam has different meanings. Although if someone insists on that, we cannot do anything. We can use other arguments. But even those who have said that wujud has different meanings and they believed in اشتراك lafzi for wujud, when it comes to Adam, they didn't say this. So they accept that Adam has one meaning. So when we say Allah mawjudun, means Allah laysa bima'dum. He's not ma'dum. He's not non-existent. When we say al-insanu mawjudun, also means al-insanu laysa bima'dum. Since ma'dum has one meaning, its opposite has to have also one meaning. So mawjud means laysa ma'dum, and laysa bima'dum is repeated for Allah and for insan or other mahiyat. Therefore, wujud also has to have one meaning, because when there is one common opposite for wujud Allah and wujud mumkinat, so these must be also the same. Otherwise, there would be irtifa'un naqizain, means we can have a case that none of the contradictory things is there. The third argument that Hakim Sabzewari mentions is this one. You had this also in Bidayah. وأنه ليس اعتقاده ارتفع إذا التعين اعتقاده امتنع. Sometimes we know that something exists, but we don't know what specifically exists. For example, we see from distance a kind of ghost or a kind of object. First say, is it a tree or is an animal? Is it fixed or is moving? But we know that it exists. You don't know it's a tree or it's animal, but still you can say it's mawjud. Then when you see it's moving, it's an animal, but is it a human being or is a bear standing on its legs? You don't know, but you know that it exists. So when you say this is mawjud, but I don't know what type of mawjud, it shows that mawjud has one meaning regardless of the type of that being or mahiyya of that being, if it is mumkin. So even if I'm not able to say what exactly this being is, still I can say it's mawjud. It's not that if I have doubt about its type, then I cannot say it is mawjud, because mawjud has in itself that type inserted, as those who believe in اشتراك al-lafzi say. So وَأَنَّهُ لَيْسَ اعْتِقَادُهُ ارْتَفَعَ means the belief in mawjud or wujud does not go away. Is that تعين اعتقادهم امتنع, if we cannot believe specifically what it is. I cannot say what it is exactly, but still I can say it is mawjud. This is a third argument that Khaja brings for proving اشتراك معنوي for wujud. Then we go to the third point. We had this before in, again, Bidaya. You have it in Nihaya also. And that is about the fact that wujud is different from mahiyya. إن الوجود عارض المهية تصورا واتحاد هوية. This is our last point for today. إن الوجود عارض المهية تصورا واتحاد هوية. In our mind, when we want to conceive concepts, when we are dealing with concepts, we say al-insanu mawjudun. Normally we speak like this, yeah? Or al-insanu laysa mawjud, zaydun mawjudun or ghayr mawjud. We don't say al-wujudu insanun, for example, normally. Although we can say hadha al-wujud insanun. But normally the very first thing that we want to establish is wujud for mahiyat. So al-insanu mawjudun or laysa. واجب الوجود موجود شريك الباري ليس بموجود. Anyway, we bring wujud and mahiyya, we make a statement, a proposition, qadiyya, hamliyya, they have subject and predicate, mawzu, mahmul, and we say that they have some kind of اتحاد. إن الوجود عارض المهية تصورا. But What about reality? What about their identity? When I say Zaydun mawjudun, or in general al-insanu mawjudun, is wujud different from Zayd? Is wujud different from mahiyatul insan? We have two beings here, two realities here, or there's only one reality? The answer is that there is only one reality, one person, one reality. Our mind is able to analyze things and to separate mahiyya from wujud. Therefore, we can say this mahiyya exists or doesn't exist. But if we go to the world of realities, there is only one thing. This separation is in world and the realm of concepts. In reality, you have one thing, one person. إن الوجود عارض المهية تصورا واتحاد هوية. Also, please remember that for our zihn, for our mind, mahiyya is more familiar. And this is why we say al-insanu mawjudun, because we deal with mahiyat as a kind of mafhum. Mahiyat may exist, may not exist. For example, here I don't have any horse. I can say al-farasu laysa. I have faras as mahiyya in my mind, but I can say this faras has no reality. So our mind is more familiar with mahiyat. It doesn't mean that it's not familiar with wujud, but when it comes to mafhumul wujud, it's coming after mahiyya, normally. إن الوجود عارض المهية تصورا. So in tasawwur, there are two things. One is predicated of the other, but in reality there is only one. They are united. This is what they call إن الوجود زائد على الماهية, or زيادة الوجود على الماهية. What is the reason why you say they are different? Why you say wujud is different from mahiyya? One reason, although it is badihi, it doesn't need really argument. So it's more a kind of reminder. It's a kind of tadhakkur. لصحة السلب على الكون فقط. لصحة السلب على الكون فقط. والافتقار حمله إلى الوسط. Hakim Sabzewari rahmatullah alayhi brings here two arguments so briefly. لصحة السلب على الكون فقط والافتقار حمله إلى الوسط. One argument is this, or one reminder is this, that you can negate wujud from mahiyya. Sometimes I know what is elephant, what is faras, what is horse, or even I know what is dinosaur, and I say this doesn't exist. In the case of dinosaurs, say they don't exist in this planet. In the case of elephant, for example, I can say they don't exist in this room or this city. So in any way we can use mahiyya and then say it doesn't exist. We negate existence from mahiyya. If mahiyya and wujud were identical, they had the same meaning, we were not able to negate wujud from mahiyya. Number two, the second argument, the second reminder. لافتقار حمله إلى الوسط, حمل الوجود. You know what is faras, but knowing faras, is it enough for saying that faras exists or doesn't exist? Here we are talking about existence, but even non-existence the same? No, because faras has equal relation with existence and non-existence. We need additional evidence. Just knowing faras is not enough. You need wasat, means you need argument, you need qiyas, and you know qiyas has always a middle term, had the wasat, a middle term that connects suqra and kubra. You say aleph is ba, ba is jim, so aleph is jim. This ba is called haddul wasat, the middle term. We have hadd asghar, hadd akbar, minor and major terms, and then we have hadd wasat. So if we want to say something exists, we need wasat, means we need hadd wasat, means we need to use qiyas and have something common so that we can say this hadd asghar has wujud. I cannot automatically say al-farasu mawjudun. I need to say al-faras is something and that thing has wujud, so faras has wujud, like this. So the fact that you can negate sometimes existence from mahi, and also the fact that if you want to affirm existence you need argument, these two show that wujud is different from mahiyya. Otherwise, if they were identical, you could not have negated wujud from mahiyya and you did not need to prove it. So both show that wujud is different from mahiyya. Then he says وَلِنْفِكَاكٍ مِنْهُ فِي التَّعَقُّلِ, also because in ta'aqqul, in when we are understanding and thinking, we realize that in our mind we can distinguish between wujud and mahiyya. They are not the same. وَالِاتِّحَادِ الْكُلِّ وَالتَّسَلْسُلِ. Also another argument is that if wujud and mahiyya were the same, and we know that wujud is used in one sense, then it means that all mahiyat become the same. Because wujud has one meaning. If faras is the same as wujud, and shajar is the same as wujud, and hajar is the same as wujud, and insan is the same as wujud, so they all become the same. This is also a problem. While we know that they have different meanings and there are different types. Faras is different from hajar and shajar and baqar, etc., and fil. And finally, this is our last point. Finally, tasalsul. It would lead to endless regression. How? If wujud is not separate from mahiyya, we use burhan khulf, we use a kind of reverse argument. We say if wujud is not the same as mahiyya, alhamdulillah. But if you insist, you say no, wujud and mahiyya are the same, we say okay, is wujud aynul mahiyya or juz'ul mahiyya? If wujud is aynul mahiyya, we said then all mahiyat become the same. اتحاد. because wujud is mushtarak manawi, and if wujud is ayn al-mahiyya, all become the same. If wujud is juz al-mahiyya, means part of mahiyya, and then there is a part which is different from wujud. Now the question is, what about that part? What is that part? Is that part also mawjood or is not mawjood? If it is not mawjood, then it's a problem. So you have accepted that it's different. If it is wujud, then again you say that part has wujud and another part, then that part again wujud and another part. So it goes endlessly backward. It's tasalsul. So either you have to say that they are exactly the same, they are synonymous, then اتحاد of all mahiyat is unevitable. If you say mahiyya has wujud and something else, then we shift the question to that what is extra, that part of mahiyya which is extra to wujud, and we say what about that? Is this different from wujud? Okay. But if it is again something which has wujud, then we shift the question to the second, and this goes on. So what we established today is, one, that concept of wujud is self-evident. مفهوم الوجود بدیهی. Number two, concept of existence is equivocal, is مشترک معنوی. Number three, concept of wujud is different from concept of mahiyya. Mahiyya's concept is different from concept of mahiyya. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. If you have any questions, any comments, we have Alhamdulillah time. I think for today these 3 lessons are enough. But if you have questions, comments, we can inshallah discuss from this week or last week. Is there any question, any comment? You are welcome. Mawzu and mahmul. Mawzu is subject, mahmul is predicate. Yeah, I don't see a question here. Okay, so inshallah bi'iznillah we meet inshallah next week, and I think next Tuesday there is no holiday, so hopefully inshallah we can have Tuesday and Wednesday inshallah. The timing is the same, 5 p.m. according to Qom time inshallah. Iltimas dua from everyone.